he or she's going on the road. Once again though, it's pretty good. This is the sort of thing I'm expecting from you, that the existing ground line, the design line, don't need to do the different materials, but the centre line you should also have set out as well, if it is actually the set out point, and the road carriageway width. At each cross section there will be a level as well, which should be on the top of the road. Here. What's next? Drop down. That's another one there showing all the different characteristics of the road. So it's a lot more than just a few lines on a road, 3D road drawing. Anyone that's worked on site will laugh at the 3D modelling that you're doing, because there's a hell of a lot more to it than just those lines that you're doing. But you can't do road design on site unless somebody starts off with some basic design. Is there any cross wall on your road, Dave?
Just 2%.
Okay, don't forget to put the cross wall on there, if there's cross wall on the road. Carry on. So this is just some examples of different roads. There's no harm in it being there. You can ignore it if you want to, but it's giving you a bit of an idea. Remember, at this level, when you were doing this subject, you guys had sort of come across road design in any way, so some of this stuff is an introduction as well. Okay, here's a pretty flash looking little cross section as well, but it's of a pipe, so it's not as relative, and it's also of a platform. So it gives you an idea of some more notes, and there's some notes on here as well, which are very hard to read, never mind. And of course this here, which is your key. I also like to see a ground symbol underneath the actual ground as well. Gives you a bit of an idea of what's existing ground and what's not. And any cut and fill hatch looks pretty nice as well on the drawing. Nice, yeah, nice. Carry on. Drop down. So balancing the quantities, there's a good explanation there on why we do that, the reason for it. It's really important on a site like this. You don't want to be bringing in material to site that has to be tested before it goes, because we've got all the wetlands and what have you over there, but at the same time you don't want to be taking too much of it away, especially at this time of the year. You've got nowhere to put it because all the tips have closed down dumping sites in winter. So keeping the costs down by balancing the quantities is important. Carry on down, Dave. I wouldn't mind going to my example drawings. Well, stop there. That's not too bad. Notice the contours are labelled. Notice the old trees labelled. This is more of a proposed drawing. Any pipes going anywhere labelled. You've got your batter slopes here, which does Civil3d give you symbols?
No.
Okay, they're another important part of the job, because it tells whether it's cut or filled. Always the symbols at the top of the slope. In this case, that must be, if it's up there, it must be cut. If it's down there, it's filled. It's coming off the road. And always label top of cut and bottom or toe of fill, as it is over there. Another very important note on all roads is the beginning and the end. You must tie in with the existing road. Very important note, because we don't want to have people drive along and they go thump and leg down before they go onto the road. So it's important that you put the word tie into existing road. Carry on down. There's your another. This is another platform, but it's another example of a proposed site plan. Notice how these are all labelled. Does Civil3d label the contours for the design, Dave?
If they wish.
Okay, well they do need to be labelled on the proposed plan because the person building it needs to know what those labels are. Okay? Plenty more there, but I'd like to go to my examples,
Okay.
which are Moodle. No,
Didn't you?
no, next one above that.
Oh, sorry.
Just open them up, starting from the first one.
Open.
Alright, so that's very similar to the other one that we've just seen. Formation level, ground level, and some of the labels that need to be there. Don't forget to put the chainage underneath as well, or if you're not going to put chainage, put distance. Next one, just go back and then there's another example of cross sections. Notice this person has used some good symbols, plus the ground symbol, and once again they've laid out the legend in the middle with just some notes for you that you might be able to tie into your drawing as well. I'm not saying these drawings are perfect, but they're good examples. Here's an example of an existing site plan. In this case, all the contours go underneath the proposed plan. They've actually got the proposed road on top of it. You can do that dashed if you want to, but in my opinion, the existing site plan should be as is, ready to go, before any earthworks. Good notes up there that you might be able to tie into yours, and a good example of a little Unitech sketch. Notice the locality plan has a key here, a scale bar, scale bar, so that you can work out an approximate distance. Next one. So this is the long section of a road, and on this, the important things that they've put in, you don't have to worry about this, but it's important to put in any crossover pipes to make sure that they don't impact on the road. This person's used a dotted film to designate the area where it's cut. Notice the road has got an arrow on top of it with a percentage, and the word cut for this area. Formation level to here, this would be the dark line, and this line here would be dashed because it's the existing ground line along the top. So it's kind of got that a little bit wrong. The dash stops there, it should carry on, and this line here should be quite dark, quite thick. Tie-in of proposed road and existing path. So in other words, you'd have tie-in to existing road, I think. Is that what they end? Or is it just going to stop in the middle of nowhere?
We'll say the E normally.
Yeah, well, we'd say it's going to join into another road because you're not going to have a road just stop in the middle of nowhere, so put tie-in to existing road, please. And there's an example of the grade under here, 3 decimal places. You also express a grade in terms of 1 in as well. Next. This is a blast from the past, isn't it? Amazing that you're all still awake.
Actually, I should have got the sequels before.
Before me? You
Yeah.
should have, I know.
Have we seen this one?
Looks very similar.
Yes.
Okay,
I did upload them all, but some of them are a bit...
you might have uploaded two of the same name one.
Ooh.
Yeah, this one's a little bit different. Can you rotate that?
Yeah.
And I want to point out this is important that you listen to this bit. Can anyone see what's not quite right here? This is a proposed road, but the contours go down through it. And those contours should have been stopped either side. These are the existing contours going around. So that should be broken there and there, and that should be broken there and there, there and there, and there and there, etc. So your existing contour comes in and it hits the proposed contour. I think Civil3d does that, doesn't it? Breaks it underneath.
What? Drawn that.
If it doesn't, it needs to be broken.
I don't think it does.
That shouldn't be there. But here's some examples of notes on a proposed plan. Okay, next one.
What was it about the notes on the plan?
Oh, there's lots of these plans have got notes on them. You're welcome to use them as long as they're relative. Okay, but if it talks about the iwi being sensitive to the creek or something, and there's no creek there, then that's going to count against you when I'm marking. So the notes need to be relative to whatever we're talking about. I quite like this layout. I'd just like to say that it's really quite good when you can put up everything down one side. It's a hell of a lot more neater and tidier and professional, but you may not have room for that because you have a look at Dave's drawing.
Which one?
Look back to your one that you did.
Which one? That one? Profile?
Yeah. Now notice he's got the profile, but I don't know if you're going to have room down there. You might have room for that, but you definitely won't have room for that on the long section. So unfortunately I don't think there's going to be, how long is this long section?
It's 370 something metres.
Oh, well, you might be back to here,
Yeah.
somewhere over here anyway. Yeah. I don't want to see both on the same sheet, but for David, you can put both on the same sheet if you want to. It's up to you. Did you just do that for a laugh or?
No, it's just one of the default templates.
Okay, yeah, well that's fine if you want to use that default
I
template.
just kind of silly buggers.
Well, don't tell them that. Anyway, that's kind of what I've whisked up to help you from last year. I think there's enough information out of all that for you guys to glean notes to go in the drawing, labels to go in the drawing, what I kind of want it to look like at the end. Unfortunately, it didn't take long to get you a cold, Dave. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is in the real world. These modelling programs are fabulous. Then they get thrown to a drafting team to tidy up. So hopefully one day you'll be driving the modelling programs and you've got a whole set of draftsmen you can throw them all to when you finish. Move on to the next one. Yeah, yeah. I was a bit like survey, they just pass on all the rubbish, run away outside again. Yeah. Are there any questions there? Most of you look like you're not far off ready for a break. No? Well, it's a bit mean really, because that's probably the most boring lecture you've had so far in your whole time. You don't have to agree, I've still got to mark your drawing. I've got a little picture of everybody. Yeah, but anyway, don't do your sequel on me, because poor old Dave will get marked down. Do it on Alan and Dave. Yep. And we will disappear for 5 minutes while you do that, because it's not fair that we put the heat on you in terms of...
There's two sides to the sheet. Can you fill out both sides, please? You don't have to. I mean, you're not making you do this.
Yep. I normally don't do this lecture, so it was all put together at the last minute, but I thought if I didn't do it, you all complain that you haven't had at least a chance to look at what a good drawing should look like. Alan emailed me about an hour before class. He said that he is really busy at work. He's about halfway through his marking, but he said that there's a long weekend coming up this weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's going to get onto it this weekend and hopefully he'll give you some marks back.
Good old clean.
The bad news is that you don't get your marks back from Dave and I until you know whether you pass the course like everything else. The reason for that is that we allow adjustability in our teachers' meetings. Before I go, I'll just explain this. The teachers or examiners meetings happen just after you guys have sat your exams and we've done all our marking, and we go into a little room and we thresh it out for most of the day, and when we get to the students that are very close, we talk about them. You're no longer a number. Sorry about A students, we don't really talk about you too much, but the ones that are really close, we make decisions on whether they should be up or whether they should stay on the same mark. Lots of things can change our mind. Like for example, if it's a one-off that they've done, they've got good marks, but this is a really bad subject. Another thing is the level of the assignments or whatever, and another one is if they've been turning up to class. I mean, if you're not turning up, then you know, that's the mark that you probably should have got. So we talk about you, and if we release all the marks to everybody, then we don't have any flexibility to do that. So that's what we do with this subject, because there's no exam. Normally the others you have all the coursework, and then we play with the exam. So yeah, Dave will be in there, I'll be in there, and we'll go into bat for you as best we can. The other thing with you guys is a lot of you are graduating, so that comes into play as well. Okay? So you'll get Alan's one, and you'll get it next week, and that may determine how much of an effort you put into these next 3 weeks. Right. I'll shut up. I'm marking the second part, by the way. So any questions on the first part? Anything on the second part?
Last part.
Last part, that'll mean. Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
You want to go and have a grab a coffee? Or you can get out of the road with it?
Yeah. I'll just give you guys 10 minutes or so to do this, and then we'll come back, and then we'll ask one of you students to collect them and put them in the envelope so I can't see them and seal it.
Move it.
Oh, move it.
Yeah,
Move and we'll collect them. You give me a round?
You got some of that removable sellotape?
Yeah. So once move, I'll put them in the envelope, seal the envelope, okay, and then we'll put it in the Sharon's pigeonhole. So I'll give you about 10 minutes, I'll be back, okay?